Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. Gain valuable insights by attending the podcast, then complete the assessment test to download your certificate. To do this, follow these simple steps. Click on the link in your description to access the session. Create a free account and attend the podcast. After the podcast, take the assessment test and download your certificate. It's easy, and it's free. We highly recommend checking out our subscription.
Do you currently have any initiatives in place to support the mental and physical well-being of government workers?
Yes, that's actually a huge thing for us inside of the police department itself.
Yes.
Police departments are very different now. We run the city of Carbondale, a little city that has a little bit under 9,000 people. We run 700 calls a month. That's a lot of calls because, and it's a lot of calls of people thinking that we're responsible for raising their children or, negotiating arguments between neighbors. But there's some other very serious issues that go on as well. It's a different generation. So we often try to have in fact, our chief is phenomenal at this. A few years ago, they started talking about community policing. And that was all the buzzword with everybody, community policing. And I think that it came up because of the whole issue with officers being untouchable. Our chief has it down to a science. He tells everybody all the time, we have great jobs and we do what we do for a living because we love what we do for a living. So we've got it made up front. Plus, they don't make bad salaries.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of HR Talk, Unpacking Trends and Talent Innovations. I am Bannon, one of the hosts of HR Talk episodes. Today's episode's topic is HR role in local governance. Our guest today is Honorable Madam Mayor Michele Bannon. Michele Bannon is the mayor of the city of Carbondale. The city of Carbondale is the fourth oldest city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the birthplace of the first $1 million corporation in the United States, the D&H Railroad. Michele has spent the past 30 years of her career working with the residents of the city of Carbondale and local partners to build a strong and sustainable region. Mayor Bannon is committed to developing vibrant neighborhoods and impactful community development and strongly advocating for empowering a positive culture for the region. Her intentional commitment and involvement on many boards and organizations bring much joy and fulfillment in her life while facilitating her vision and her commitments. Major partners in Mayor Bannon's vision includes Neighborhood Works Northeast Pennsylvania, Carbondale YMCA, St. Francis of Assisi Kitchen, Carbondale Historical Society, Greater Carbondale Chamber of Commerce, and Wayne Memorial Hospital Community Boards. She earned Bachelor of Art degrees in psychology, political science, and public administration from Wilkes University in 1991. She served as city clerk for the city of Carbondale from 1994 until 2024, when she was elected as the mayor of Carbondale, Pennsylvania. Please join me and welcome Honorable Madam Mayor Michele Bannon. Hello, Mrs. Mayor. Thank you very much for giving us your valuable time. I was looking forward so much to have this podcast with you and pick up on your valuable experience. Thank you.
But I love being with you, Bannon.
You're so kind. You're so kind. So how's your day going?
Great, super busy. It's a Monday here. So when we're taping this, so Mondays are always fun around City Hall.
All right, great. So as you know, the topic of this podcast is about HR. And I was talking to my co-authors and colleagues, and I tell them, you know what? I have a great relationship with mayor of my city that I'm here now for 14 years in Carbondale. I have an office here. And I would love to pick up her brain about how she managed HR in the local government, in a small, not really a small city, but relevant to a big metropolitan, because I saw how close you are in relationship with your team and people. I would love to pick your brain. So, given the relationship between HR and training and development, from your point of view, what kind of training and development you think is useful for local government employees? Or if you have any particular training that you use yourself to make you ready for being a mayor?
Well, that's a great question, Benham. I took a great course a few years ago, and they had you pinpoint your visions and your values, and it was always leadership always came up inside of that. And I knew from that point on that I'd probably end up in a position similar to being a mayor. That every bit of my leadership training that I've done, I thought it was some kind of secret sauce, a place I needed to get. But we all know that it's not. It's about getting to know yourself well enough so that you can lead other people.
Yes.
And I think that's what there's a huge disconnect in our region specifically, where people don't understand that there's a direct correlation between their passions and their desires, what they do every day for a living, and how you connect the two of them up with one another. So I find myself through all the development, through all the training and development I've done on myself, the more I get to know myself, the more I'm comfortable with myself, and the more that I thrive on my passions, the better off I am at what I do. So of course that is contagious, and I try to lean that into all of our department heads. Municipalities are not very different than a regular business. We operate similar to a business, and that wasn't always the case. When I first started 30 years ago, there weren't measurable results that you needed to achieve. But when you start to see that there's no money in the bank, or there's no services being given to your residents, then you realize you need to start to build a structure around having measurable results, effective outcomes, and having a happy community. And they need to live together in the same world.
Yeah, you are correct. Running a city is like running an organization. There is a CEO and there is a departmental heads like a VPs, and relationship between them either make or break the progress of city thriving. And then you have stakeholders per se called, the city council, right? They are like a board of director of your business that they can make decisions here, there, and or this way or that way. I never thought about that way, but you are absolutely correct. So what kind of training and development you think it would be helping you in your relationship with your board of directors called the city council?
So, I'm fortunate. I've always had a very open and honest relationship with my council members, because ironically, I used to work for them. And
yes,
so
as a city clerk, yes.
As a city clerk.
Years, yeah.
Right. So, and I think that I developed that relationship, and I've trained that relationship, that we can trust one another, we respect one another, and we know where each other's coming from. And most importantly, we accept each other's position and respect each other's positions and opinions.
Yes.
So
you are correct. Relationship is a backbone of any success in any organizations.
I say that all the time.
Something that are unfortunately many organizations, as the size get bigger, being related is getting lost in shuffle. It's all become numbers, it all become success, and the only way they measure the success is the performance and productivity. And that is when we are working with the organization. It's like we try to shake them up. Wake up, you're missing the train.
Right.
Being related. Well, thank you very much. Other questions I want to ask you. What benefits does local government offer to their employees that keeping them working for municipality versus leaving and going and working for private sector and maybe get paid more?
So, the way that salaries worked when I first started, first responders were very underpaid. They didn't make a lot of money. Same with our Department of Public Works. But over the years, we've tried to bring them up to family sustaining wages because let's face it, numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
And you don't feel respected and honored unless you have a salary that reflects what you do for a living. So most of our employees are excited about being employed by the city of Carbondale because of the fantastic collective bargaining agreements that we have with them. So it's job security through a union. However, I don't like to use that as a bargaining chip or as a weapon ever. When you're in a bargaining agreement, that's exactly what it is. It's an agreement, and there needs to be respect and honor inside of that agreement. And that's why the employees stay. So, but on the other side of that, the ugly side of that, you have to help the mind shift for the good old boys that think, oh, I'm protected by a union. I'll just do whatever I can get away with and then call it a day. So what we try to do is have our employees with skin in the game. Let them feel proud of what they do. Make sure that they're acknowledged for their accomplishments. Make sure that they feel part of a team. In my manager report, and my mayor's report every month to council, I have my first section out of the box is what we're celebrating. And inside of that is we're usually celebrating something that an employee did or some type of thing in their personal life that's a big accomplishment for them, because I want them to feel like they're a part of a team and part of a family, because ultimately that's what we are. And then that mentality trickles down to our residents. And then they themselves, the residents, have skin in the game, and they feel that they can work inside their community and they can be happy inside their community.
Very interesting. Say more about how you manage or prevent that mentality you talk about, good old boys mentality. I do whatever I want because I'm protected under the umbrella of union. Say more about that. How you break that code.
Well, it's not as easy as it's not as easy as it sounds. What it is, it's walking the walk, talking the talk, and actually calling it what it is.
Yes.
Like without making somebody wrong, without placating them, and without manipulating them. And it's as simple as saying, this needs to be done. This is how it needs to be done. And I know that you can do it. And I know that you're capable of doing it. And what tools do you need from me to support you in getting that done? And it's all an open-ended conversation that my goal on the other side of it is that they went along with us and they know that.
Yeah, that approach kind of disassembling any protection, any shield, like they come with them both fists up ready to fight. And when you say, knock it off, I know who you are, I appreciate you. What can I do for you to succeed?
Right.
It's a great approach to get people to relax and actually become who they are.
Right.
And that is in our approach in the consulting and coaching. At least I can say my style is call it ontological approach to being versus doing. If you can touch who people are and lift it, they do what they know to do, and they know better than you and I what they need to do, but they need to be empowered versus just pounding them in their head. I call it 19th century management style. Do what I said. That doesn't work. It's showed for centuries that doesn't work.
And then also Benham, with that conversation too, there's also that level of and I don't want to say protecting them. I want to say or defending them. What I want to say is letting people know who we are. Often I get complaints about all of our employees. Let's face it, police officers are often in sticky situations where people are criticizing what they do because they're not happy about what happened, or a parking meter situation, or even the ladies in finance when they have an issue with paying taxes. And, people will complain to me, and I'll say to them, let's remember why we pay them. We pay them to do a job, and, I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo them and say that they're bad because you're not happy with them. Let's talk about why you're not happy with them. And let's talk through why your accountability inside of the conversation you're having. And I find that the staff is very enrolled in that because they know that I will support them. I will defend them. And on the other side of them, they will never embarrass us as a city or the organization by fighting back or being ignorant or rude to somebody. So there's that as well.
Do you want to earn CPE credit? Take this course of MyCPE to earn free credit. Click the link in the description to get started.
Just literally managing it inside the HR rules, policies, and what on the local level, state level, and federal level protecting these people. Because you can't stop citizens complaining. There's always somebody unhappy. But as long as employees know they are protected by law, processes, procedures, and regulations, and have their boss, you, behind them, then if they have done something unethical or illegal, I'm sure there's a disciplinary action inside our policies that could be resolved. What do you think should be done to improve public perception of careers in local government?
I love that question, because a lot of times, my brother was a federal employee, and he used to say all the time, "Oh, the higher up you go in government, the harder you work." I said, "No, it's quite opposite. It's the other way around." But what I think could happen is a little bit more of a spotlight on what we actually do day to day. Currently, I have an intern from the high school. Her name is Emily. And she wants to be a lawyer. And a lot of what we do in municipal government on the administrative end is law. We deal with city code books, we deal with state codes and federal codes. So it's a great exposure for her to see the grassroots of how laws actually work on the ground and boots working. So what I think is important for government employees, for them to actually shadow and see what goes on. I often take every top opportunity I can to go to the high schools and to do any higher education platforms where I can show off what I do for a living to get people engaged in that. Because let's face it, I'm not doing what I'm doing to make $1 million a year. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm passionate about serving people and leading people. Because like you say, to serve is to lead, and lead is to serve. So, and a lot of people have that in them. They just don't understand. When I first started here, I joked around about being in an ivory castle. The mentality and the culture around City Hall was, do you know who I am? Whereas my door is always open. I'm always out with people, and I want people to be known that they're known. That's what I like. So
in terms of perceptions of the society about governmental work, you heard when I came to United States, I heard this phrase, good enough for government work, right?
I hate that.
Actually, it's not really true. Government work, if it's done by integrity and the way it's designed, is an honorable thing to do, because people don't get what it takes to run a city or a state or the federal government. There's so many millions of nuts and bolts coming together to create these processes. My question is this, basically, how you break that perception? Because I promise you, if you ask 10 people in the street, they think, it's good enough for government. What do you expect? It's government. Well, what do you expect? They come and just punch the number and get salary. Oh my God, they get a lot of benefits that private sector don't get, but government sector would do. Can you speak on in that domain a little bit, please?
Right. Sure. So that is a perception. Everybody thinks that, we sit around with our feet up on our desk eating bonbons and fanning ourselves. And that is not what goes on. I find that the way we break that perception is by training. Because training not only betters your employee, but it betters the perception and the outcomes inside of your organization itself. So we have probably one of the highest trained fire departments in Pennsylvania. They actually teach nationally, and some of them even teach over in China, believe it or not. We have, our police department, same way. They're very well trained, any recent topics. And our DPW, we try to keep them trained up as well. But again, it's all based on training, knowledge. And when you have somebody that you talk to that can speak intelligently about a situation and removing their feelings and emotions from the conversation and injecting into the conversations facts and truth, that's when you start to break down that perception that it's good enough for government work. because
Yeah.
it's not, like I said earlier, everything is a law and a rule around here. It's not something that you make up or you pretend, and it's not based on how I'm feeling that day or, you know, what I want to do. It's based on this is what's happening. And that's a secret sauce too. Figuring out how to meld the feelings and emotions from your constituents and your residents into the facts and into the realities, and finding the happy medium there that works for everybody.
Very, very interesting. Do you currently have any initiatives in place to support the mental and physical well-being of government workers?
Yes, that's actually a huge thing for us inside of the police department itself.
Yes.
Police departments are very different now. We run the city of Carbondale, a little city that has a little bit under 9,000 people. We run 700 calls a month. That's a lot of calls because, you know, and it's a lot of calls of people thinking that we're responsible for raising their children or, you know, negotiating arguments between neighbors. But there's some other very serious issues that go on as well. It's a different generation. So we often try to have our, in fact, our chief is phenomenal at this. A few years ago, they started talking about community policing. And that was all the buzzword with everybody, community policing. And I think that it came up because of the whole issue with officers being untouchable. Our chief has it down to a science. He tells everybody all the time, we have great jobs and we do what we do for a living because we love what we do for a living. So we've got it made up front. Plus they don't make bad salaries. So what he has done is he's encouraged them to educate themselves and he creates a forum for all of them individually and collectively as a group so that they can talk about what's going on, so they can see what's new and upcoming. They're mandated to do updates twice a year themselves, and they always choose topics. In the past couple of years, the topics all center around mental and physical well-being, which
Yes.
I love that. And but having a hands-on chief, he jokes all the time. Do you ever notice anybody that owns a restaurant that's successful? He's always there. He said, I run a police department that's successful because I'm always here. And he's always available to his officers. And they have that image of being a tough guy. He takes that stigma out of it and he breaks it down for them. You know, like, I've noticed you've been late coming to work. I've noticed that you're distant. I noticed that your arrest record is not what it used to be. And he has a conversation and he walks that through with them, which is very rare. I'm very blessed to have a chief that understands that when his staff works, the organization itself works.
Yeah, which is bringing us back to that relationship building and relatedness.
Right.
I would said that to any senior manager I train. You have to learn relatedness before attempting to relate to someone, which is open the door to whole concept of emotional intelligence, communication, active listening. And these are the initiatives I saw a lot of local or state government using for training their people, emotional intelligence, or these days EQ, they call it, you know, emotional acquaintance, which is recently is more important than IQ because organizations realize that IQ give them the degree that this person can recognize the pattern, right? There's an EQ that shows the degree that this person can actually show empathy and have compassion and get related.
Right.
And each afternoon when I open the news, I see a cop got shot somewhere, traffic stop. It breaks my heart. But what kind of pressure these people in the uniform facing? Yes, there is some bad apples in every apple cart.
Right.
However, not all the cops are bad people.
No.
God knows how much pressure, emotional pressure, they carry for every simple traffic stop. Who knows who's going to put gun on you? I mean, I don't want to be in uniform.
Right. And you say a lot when you talk about the emotional end of things, the emotional quotient. I find that that's in our community itself, that is lacking all over. And I think it's lacking all over, not just because it's an intellectual thing. It's more of a wisdom type thing. People are always looking for a pound of flesh. They're always looking to make somebody wrong. And they're always looking to have some type of give me on the other side, or take their hurt and put it onto somebody else. And the culture that we try to create here at the city is that, listen, if you're hurting, you need to communicate that responsibly with us so that we can manage it together. And then when you go out into the world and somebody tries to put their hurt onto you, it doesn't affect you. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a bubble around you. And we want you to feel safe inside that. So that you can do your job effectively.
Yes, and I think this is one of the things that any HR department can take on by having these conversations publicly, bringing that kind of, I don't want to say training and development, because usually training and development have a structure, but like keeping a conversation open and alive.
Right, right.
That what are you getting out of this complaint? How this complaint going to help your police department or fire department? What can you add to it, especially in a small towns like Carbondale, Pennsylvania, with 9,000 residents? It's like a big family, you know?
It is. It
versus
is a
a
family.
metropolitan size of city, Los Angeles, Boston, New York, which is make it almost impossible. It's a very big undertaking. But having this conversation on the level of, for example, in the council meetings or public opening, what do you call it? What's the word for it? Public hearing. I don't want to call it hearing, but I forgot the terminology that people.
Town meetings.
Townhouse conversation about how could we resolve that, and getting people to see their responsibilities in this matter. Do you have any stories about how getting people show more empathy or compassion for their servants, like police department, fire department, city hall staff?
So, you know, I have to say all the time, I'm pretty blessed. We have a very young police department that are very attractive. So we always have a lot of attention on them. What we don't have is a lot of attention on our DPW guys who are, you know, they're down in the sewers. They're the ones cleaning the roads and plowing the roads, and fire departments as well, because they pretty much.
Mayor, would you please explain DPW? Just break it down for our audience to know what it is.
Sure, I will. You know, we're municipal government. We talk in acronyms. So DPW stands for Department of Public Works, and that's what they do. They do all the things out in the street and in the public. If your sewer line is blocked, they'll come and help you. If your road needs to be plowed, if there's something broken, potholes, they do all that stuff. If there's a dead cat in the road, they come and they take them out. You know, they get all the jobs nobody else wants to do.
Nobody wants to touch. Yes.
But I find that people are so generous and kind. I often have, and it's old and young alike. They come up to my office and they have trays of cookies or pizza or things like that to share with our staff to let them know that they're appreciated. And I know that it sounds very archaic and old fashioned, but relate on the other end, they think that's great that somebody thought about them.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. So, and you know, there's lots of times where people aren't happy, but once you communicate with them that this is how it works, they're always either calling back or popping by to apologize for what they said or what they did or how they treated one of the employees. I have a million stories on that.
Very good. Very good. So let's talk about ethical issues, because any organization, regardless of a small business, nonprofit, or government, they always use with ethical and a standard of operation, right? What are the most common ethical issues that HR department or your city department faces in local government?
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.
Ethically, that's a very funny line to cross, because we have a code of ethics as city employees. You know, there's rules what you can take and what you can't take from people, and we're invited into people's home on every single level, whether it be through code enforcement, through police or fire. So there has to be a very high level of standard to be able to even become a city employee. You know, two of our disciplines with police and fire, you have to be civil service employees. And you have to go through a testing process that's 7 or 8 steps long. And inside of that is a background investigation and a criminal investigation. And the same for all of our other ones too. So the ethics end is handled on that end. But once they get into the fold and once they get here, that's never really an issue for us here, because I have a friend that always said a fish smells from the head down.
They should stink from the head. Yeah.
Yeah. And that works both ways though. If you have
And
somebody
it
that
just
says,
happened in that case, you're the fish, right? You're
right,
the head.
right, right. So if they see that this is appropriate or that's not appropriate, they get that. And there's always an open communication to say, if they have I try to have a relationship with all our department heads and with all our staff, like that says to them that if I have a question, whether this is wrong or right, I can ask somebody without feeling that I'm being made fun of or that I'm being judged. So that happens quite a bit too. So, I'm blessed in that respect, that there's not really a lot of ethical issues around here. And if there are, they're addressed immediately with dignity and respect, and we move on from that.
So we didn't have any ethical issues that blow out of proportion and get to official complaint or lawsuits.
Oh, sure, we get lots of those. But don't forget, a lot of the lawsuits we get on our level are lawsuits that are based on somebody that feels that they were wronged more from a legal standpoint rather than an employee standpoint. It's not often. In my 30 years here, I think we were sued once because of the behavior of an employee. And the employee really wasn't our employee, and he was off duty. So I have to say that we are blessed in that fashion, that we don't really have a lot of that. When we get a complaint, the nature of our business is to make people upset. Sadly enough, because there's code enforcement, there's arrests.
Yeah, it's not like you intentionally want to upset them, but for example, code enforcement, if they build something illegal and you demanding this has to be corrected or demoed, obviously they're upset. But who wants to say, hey, I'm responsible for my own upset?
Right, exactly.
So if you provide an advice for somebody in a local governance like your position to handle or prevent unethical issue, what would be your advice?
Well, see, and that's easy. That's sort of what we do every day around here. And I think that might be one of the reasons that we don't get sued a lot, thank God, is because whenever we see that something's been wronged or that we've done something wrong, rather than shoving it under a carpet, playing, I don't know what we're talking about, we own it up front, own your crap. Just when you get it, when you see what happened, you try to right what was wronged. Then you try to move forward with the person that was aggrieved in a way that they feel respected and honored. And on the other side, make it a learning moment for the staff inside of what had happened. We're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. And, if you did it intentionally, we'll deal with it on that end. But if it was an accident, we'll learn from this and we'll move on. So, and then that's what it is. It's just bringing to the forefront what the issue is, owning what's yours to own, and working from there.
Which is, as you're speaking, I'm thinking communication, accountability, and personal responsibility is very much forcing that, right? Now, which is what you describe, I think is much easier to manage in a smaller municipality versus larger municipality.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Now, as you were talking, I was thinking about another question. Politics. Not politics in terms of Republican or Democrats. I'm talking about politics as a small town politics.
Right.
I bet you have a lot of issues coming to you in terms of local politics, of make sure your people who involve the biggest stakeholders are pleased and intact.
Right.
Do you have anything to say about that, how you handle local politics?
Sure, I do.
Because it's like a corporate politics. It's always there. It's always
right. Right. So I find that, and funny enough, a lot of the politics that we do are, for example, right now we have something ordered that we need here at City Hall, and the vendor that needs to provide it to us is dragging his feet on it. And he's the only one locally that does this type of job. So I have outside people screaming at me, then go find somebody else that does it. And I say to them all the time, I'm not going to jeopardize a relationship that I have with somebody who pays their taxes within the city of Carbondale and is a member of our family because I'm mad that they're dragging their heels on something.
Yeah.
So, and it's as simple again as like going to that vendor and saying, listen, I'm catching heat because this isn't getting done and it needs to get done. And I don't want to take the business elsewhere because I don't want to embarrass you by taking our business in the city of Carbondale, which you're a member of, outside of the city of Carbondale. So there's a lot of fine lines that you have to walk on, where you shop to buy your toothpaste or where you get your prescriptions from, or, it's all,
all the nature of that small city.
Right. That's all. And, and again, even who you affiliate yourself with.
Yes.
Blackbirds don't fly with bluebirds. So you always have to keep your eye on that and make sure that you're above reproach and that your personality and who you are shines through at all times. To thine own self be true. And at the same time, respect, dignity, and honor are always the foundation of everything.
Yes, which is handling this type of political issue in a small city is much easier than a bigger metropolitan area.
Sure it is. Well, because I can touch it. There's not a time that something doesn't happen around here that I don't know about it within 5 minutes.
Yes. You have a lot of eyes on the matter, right?
Right.
Yeah, that is a beauty of a small city, a small town managing, because people are in a much deeper relationship to each other, a much better understanding of each other, because anything that affects the neighbors, they affect them too.
Right. That's good and that's bad.
No, it's good.
Yeah. And sometimes people think it earns them, they're a privileged character. And I tell them all the time, go up and talk to my mom. She'll tell you she gets the rules enforced on her worse than anybody.
Everything that so far I listened to you, keep bringing this thing up for me that it's literally in a small town, HR department, HR rules. It's like managing a family.
It is.
Talking to each other, bringing both kids on the table to talk about the issue. Make sure don't bring politics to it. Make sure be straight about things, speak up, which is from my assumption, make HR ruling much easier in terms of what come to conclusion and resolution. It makes it much easier.
Right. Because up front, I could say, if we have an issue, I can say right now, I need to step back for a couple of minutes because I'm coming from my feelings and emotions and my own personal attachment to it, whatever it is at the time. But after, you walk away from it for a couple of minutes or an hour or two, you're able to go back with a fresh head and see, okay, here's what happens. Here's what happened. Here's what we need. Here's where we need to go. How are we going to get there the most effective way without including what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling at the time.
Got it. I have a couple of questions about which is the future based. How do you see the compositions of the local government workforce evolving over the next decades? Or what key skills or competencies do you believe will be crucial for that future?
So that's a great question, for the simple fact that we have a very aged fire department. And when I say aged, they're not old. It's just that they've been working for 20 some years as being firemen, and it's a very strenuous job. Same thing with some of our police department, half are young, half are old. And I've noticed that there's such a huge difference between the young and the old. And I don't mean in physical abilities.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean in mental abilities as well. And, sometimes I say I'd rather deal with the young guys who are more, they're a little bit more, they're more emotional. They're more in tune with their feelings. They're more empathetic, where the older ones are more tough guys. But then you look at the other side and sometimes you need the tough guys. So what I see evolving is building that bridge between the two, taking the older guys and the younger guys and having them share their thoughts, because a lot of times the older guys are like, this young pup's not going to tell me what to do. And the younger guys are like, those dinosaurs don't know what they're talking about.
Do you know this is a major issue in the workforce globally?
Mhm.
This is not just what you're dealing with. This is every corporate dealing with.
Right, right.
Every corporate, the resistance of older generation and not welcoming of the younger generation. You know, it's please finish your thought. I have something to say about this. Please go ahead.
Sure. So what we do is we play a game. Tell us about your bias.
Tell us about your bias.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So, I'm a bit older myself. I'm 55. So, and I have that. I was raised by a mother and father who were very, work driven, very, you had to be moving at all times or you didn't matter. So I have that drive behind me. So when I see the younger population of kids, doing around and not really working hard, I find it frustrating. So what my bias was, and I'm going to swear a little bit, I have in my head that generation are entitled little pricks. So, when I was able to sit with them and say to them, that's my bias. And I said, help me to understand how that's not the truth, because I've made that up. That's a total story that I've made up. So, so we sat and we talked about it, and just by hearing, and then they said, give me an example why you think that. And I said, well, when I call you and you don't answer the phone, or I text you and you don't text me back, that infuriates me because I need something at that time and you're not responding to me, and it's because you're being lazy. And they're like, we're not being lazy. They said, we're nervous because you're calling us.
The boss calling, yeah.
Yes. And then they said, then we don't know what to say back to you when we text you. So we don't look at the text. I said, that's great insight. I'm glad that you said that.
So the next text would look at that.
Yes. Well, and I think that then them owning that with me gives me a little bit of compassion and understanding so that I can manage them on the back end. So if I need to speak to them directly, I'll text them and say, when you have 2 seconds, give me a call. I need to talk to you about whatever. And that helps them ease into what they need to get done. And otherwise, they're brilliant. I find that if I have an idea for something and I blow it out to them, they come back with something 50,000 times better than I could ever come up with, because they're so technologically savvy. Yes. They understand, they're empathetic, like I said earlier, so they understand the feel of the market. So it all works out well for us.
So again, if you list the competencies or the skills that you think it will make the future workforce more savvy, what would that skills or competencies would be?
To find their discipline, find what inside their discipline they're passionate about, and train them. I find a trained employee is so much more confident in what they do for a living that then they can start to work on themselves. It's almost natural. We have a younger cop who trains himself extensively, and just recently, over the past few months, I've noticed that we're transitioning him into some leadership conversations. And I love that he comes back and tells me stories about what's the difference between a leader and a manager. Those are things I don't think about because I have to do both all the time. Yes. But when he can dissect that and tell me this is what the difference between each of those is, it would be, I'm thrilled about that, because then I can see how those competencies are actually melding into one another and developing a better employee. Very
nice. I'll tell you a story of what a big organization I was working with under the umbrella of organization development and change intervention. And that organization, because they were in business for the last 60 years, they had most of their workforce were over 45 or 50 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Most of them, because they were there forever. Mm-hmm. And most the younger generation was on the quality control or on the machineries control, or some departments that have nothing to do with the direct production. And this issue of older generation don't give any credit to younger one. Right. You guys, bunch of airheads, don't tell me what to do. I've been doing this for 15 years. I was doing this for 40 years. Don't tell me what to do, right? Go play with your phone, right? I'm trying to implement some new technology. Some of these guys or girls, they don't even know how to open a computer, how to print something, how to email something. Right. Now, the board of directors and top managers, well, why don't email me? So I don't know how to email you. That was like, okay. I gave you the idea of mentorship. I said,
Mhm.
you know what? Let's play this game, mentorship. I asked the older generation to take a younger generation to mentor them about what they know,
That's a great idea.
and ask the same team, the younger generation, teaching them how to text, how to email, how to open an email, how to
Right.
close an email, how to save a document, how to save an attachment.
Yeah.
These are simple things that you and I take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But a good old boy or good old girl that work on this machine or that production line for the last 40 years, they don't want to even touch it
No.
because they make him look inferior. They
Mm-hmm.
make him look, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. However, that new generation want to learn how this machine work.
Right.
What is the purpose of this production line?
Uh-huh.
Where it starts, when it ends, what's the purpose of it? They give them some perspective on what they working on. And
Right.
that mentorship program works so well, especially when I told the older generation, work with the younger generation as your replacement.
Mm-hmm.
As
Right.
somebody who come pick your job after you honorably get your retirement and decide you're going to walk away. And that actually worked very well.
And think about that for 2 seconds. That is pure genius, because now you have that younger person who has somebody that they can look up to.
Yes.
And then you have the older generation who feels comfortable taking somebody under their wing and making a difference for them. It's
Mrs.
genius.
Mayor, you're not going to believe on the first quarter after we implement this mentorship, production went up 3%,
Mm-hmm.
which is 3% is a lot. In a
It is.
multi-million-dollar production a quarter,
Right.
3% is a big number. And all their managers were scratching their head. I said, this is like opening possibility for two
Right.
different generations.
And you're breaking down all that ickiness.
Yeah, and now everybody contributing. And you know, I was watching them. Resistance come to almost zero. They were joking. They had lunch together.
Right.
They were talking. Oh my God, it was like awesome.
Right.
Anyway, I have a last question for you, Mrs. Mayor. Based on your experience, what advice you give to an HR professional aiming to have a successful HR in the HR department on the local government?
Know your people. know your
Say more
people.
about it.
Yeah, and know your people and know what their functions are in their day-to-day operations, and know what their needs are. Know that you know their daughter's going away to college, and that's why they're spending a couple extra minutes in the bathroom because they're pulling themselves back together because they're crying. You know, just know their lives, because then you can be with them and walk that walk with them. You know, you're not going to cure everything, and you're not going to make everything unicorns and butterflies, but they're going to know that their boss is walking with them and their HR department is walking with them on their journey. Because let's face it, 8 hours of every human being's day is spent here at work.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we are with each other. And then also know what their life is, know what their jobs are. You know, if I go downstairs all mad because somebody was rude to a customer, you know, if I know what their job is, I can help them look at it from a different perspective, so that they can get themselves over a hump and see it from a different opportunity. Like I tell them all the time, nobody's criticizing you when they point something out. They're looking to give you an opportunity to look at it from their perspective. You know, it's all a filter of how you hear things. So that's all it is. Just help them understand their filters, so that they can actually take them and make them work for them. So that's
Bernard Shaw said, if you want something to change your perspective of what you look
right.
for. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much for your time. I know how busy you are. I know how valuable your time is for serving people of Carbondale. We appreciate your wisdom, your experience, and we are grateful for your time.
Oh, thank you. And I'm honored to be here, especially with you, Bannon.
Thank you very much. You're so kind. Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now